We begin our report in the hills of the occupied West Bank, in the Palestinian village of Turmus Ayya, northeast of Ramallah, a community known for its olive trees, its resilience, and once again for finding itself at the heart of confrontation. On what should have been a peaceful morning of olive harvesting, thick clouds of tear gas drifted through the fields. Palestinian farmers, joined by a group of international volunteers, suddenly scattered, coughing and covering their faces as Israeli forces advanced into the area, the air filled with shouts, the thud of canisters, and the sharp sting of gas. The villagers who came to pick olives were now running for their safety. The olive harvest here is more than agricultural routine. It is a tradition that sustains families and binds generations. Each autumn, farmers return to the same trees their parents and grandparents tended before them. But year after year, this season of renewal has also become a season of fear. Witnesses say Israeli settlers from the nearby Shiloh settlement appeared shortly after dawn. Wearing masks and moving in groups, they were seen approaching from the ridge overlooking the groves. Moments later, Israeli soldiers arrived, claiming to prevent clashes, yet their presence coincided with the dispersal of the farmers themselves. In the valley below, men tried to block the dirt road with stones, hoping to stop the settlers' advance. Others shouted warnings for the elderly and children to stay back, the sound of tractors starting up mixed with that of tear gas launchers. In the confusion, baskets of olives were left scattered across the earth, symbols of a harvest interrupted. Standing at the edge of the field, Muayyad Shaban, the head of the Wall and Settlement Resistance Commission, described what he saw. He said in Arabic, "A group of settlers has gathered, visibly preparing themselves and putting on masks." Vehicles are arriving from the Shiloh settlement, and it appears the situation is about to escalate due to the ban preventing Palestinians from reaching olive trees. The area is classified as Area B. This is where we are located. It is evident that there is an unspoken decision by the Israeli government and the settlers to prevent anyone from reaching the olive trees. Muayyad Shaban, head of the Wall and Settlement Resistance Commission. Shaban's words reflect the growing anger among Palestinian villagers who say they are being denied access to their own land. In Area B, land that is supposed to be under Palestinian civil control but remains under Israeli military oversight, the farmers describe a pattern of restrictions and intimidation. A few meters away, the mayor of Turmus Ayya, Lafi Shalabi, watches the tear gas clouds drift over the groves. He explains the frustration of his community. Every day, settlers carry out attacks in areas under the control of the Palestinian Authority, including those classified as Area B and even in some Area A zones, where people, Palestinians, are prevented from harvesting their olives. Lafi Shalabi, mayor of Turmus Ayya. For Shalabi and others, this isn't a one-time incident. The mayor says such confrontations have become a painful routine that now defines the village's yearly calendar. Each October, as the olives ripen, tension ripens too. The olive tree has long been a symbol of rootedness in Palestinian culture, a living connection to the land and its history. Many of these trees are centuries old. Families give them names, record their ages, and keep stories of how each was planted. The destruction or burning of an olive tree is therefore felt not only as economic loss, but as an assault on identity itself. In today's West Bank, the harvest season often unfolds under threat. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has recorded hundreds of settler-related incidents each year, many involving property damage, intimidation, or physical violence. Most occur precisely during this period of olive gathering, when Palestinian presence in rural areas is highest. Farmers here accuse Israeli authorities of doing little to prevent these incidents. They point to the rare number of investigations and even fewer convictions for attacks on Palestinian property. The result, they say, is a sense of impunity that fuels more aggression. Meanwhile, Israeli officials insist that their forces are deployed to maintain order and prevent clashes between settlers and residents. Yet to Palestinians, the image on the ground tells a different story of soldiers shielding settlers, of tear gas fired not at masked men, but at unarmed farmers. In Turmus Ayya, foreign activists have long been a part of the harvest. Volunteers from Europe, the United States and Japan join the villagers each year, believing their presence offers a layer of protection. Some carry cameras, others simply pick olives alongside locals, but this solidarity also makes them targets. They too run from tear gas. They too face threats shouted in Hebrew across the fields. A young volunteer describes the atmosphere. "Every season we expect harassment," she says quietly. "The settlers know when the farmers will come. They plan for it. We are here to witness." For the villagers, harvesting olives has turned into an act of resistance. Each trip to the groves feels like reclaiming a right that others are trying to erase. If we stay home, one farmer says, they will take the land. So we go, even if it's dangerous. The topography of the area amplifies the tension. Turmus Ayya lies surrounded by several Israeli outposts, some built without formal authorization, but later connected to infrastructure by the state. From these hilltops, settlers can monitor movement below. To the farmers, it feels like living under constant surveillance. In the heart of the village, after the gas cleared, residents gathered to assess the damage. They spoke of injured workers, of stolen tools, of trees uprooted overnight. One woman held up a basket half filled with olives, saying it was all she could collect before being forced out. "We came to work, not to fight," she said, wiping her eyes. The Israeli army later issued a brief statement saying troops had acted to prevent clashes and that security measures were necessary in light of friction in the area. But to those who were there, the confrontation felt anything but neutral. Beyond the immediate violence, these scenes highlight the fragile geography of the West Bank itself. Under the Oslo Accords, the land was divided into areas A, B, and C, each with differing degrees of Palestinian and Israeli control. 3 decades later, that arrangement has blurred. Roads, checkpoints, and expanding settlements have carved up the terrain, leaving many Palestinian communities, like Turmus Ayya, hemmed in and dependent on military permission to reach their own farms. As the day wore on, villagers returned cautiously to pick up what remained. Children gathered olives that had rolled down the slopes. Older men examined the soil, noting which trees had been scorched by smoke. The harvest that was supposed to feed families for months now looked uncertain. In conversations throughout the afternoon, farmers spoke of fear mixed with exhaustion. They say they are tired of pleading for protection that never comes, and yet determined not to abandon the groves. One elderly farmer, leaning on his cane, said softly, "They can scare us, but they can't erase our roots." The story of Turmus Ayya mirrors that of many other villages across the West Bank, from Al-Mughayr to Karyut and Jalud, where the rhythm of life is punctuated by the rhythm of conflict. Each community has its own stories of burned trees, broken bones, and nights spent guarding land under the stars. Human rights organizations have urged both Israeli authorities and international mediators to ensure safe access for farmers during harvest season. They argue that denying access to farmland amounts to collective punishment and violates basic rights guaranteed under international law. Despite these appeals, the cycle continues. Each new year brings new footage. Farmers fleeing gas, soldiers on armoured vehicles, settlers with cameras filming from the hills. The pattern has become familiar, even predictable. What changes are the names of the victims, not the circumstances. As the afternoon fades into evening, the hills around Turmus Ayya glow with a soft amber light. The last of the farmers gather their tools and begin the walk back to the village. Their faces are tired but defiant. Some carry small sacks of olives, not enough for profit, but enough to prove they tried. At the village centre, Mayor Shalabi meets with a few local elders. They discuss filing a complaint with the Palestinian Authority and reaching out to international observers. Yet experience has taught them that results are slow and often symbolic. This happens every year, Shalabi tells them, and every year the world watches. The mayor's words echo through the hall, a mixture of resignation and endurance. For him, the struggle is not just about olive trees, but about maintaining the village's very presence on the map. Without the land, he says, there is no life here. As darkness settles, the distant lights of the Israeli settlements come into view, clusters of bright dots across the hillsides. They are close enough to see, close enough to hear. Between them and the Palestinian homes lies a patchwork of fences, roads, and military zones. This proximity shapes daily reality. Each dawn begins under watch, and each night ends with uncertainty. For many of Turmus Ayya's families, the olive tree remains a symbol of patience. It grows slowly, it endures drought, and it survives pruning. In its resilience, they see a reflection of themselves. "We plant for our children," says one farmer, "even if we don't know if they'll be allowed to harvest." Tonight, the groves stand quiet. The smoke has lifted, but the air still carries the memory of tear gas. Dogs bark in the distance, and somewhere on the hill, a generator hums. The farmers lock their gates, hoping tomorrow will bring calm, but knowing it rarely does. Across the West Bank, similar scenes unfold. In villages large and small, where agriculture and confrontation intertwine, the global audience often sees only the clashes, the brief images of chaos. Yet behind every frame are ordinary people trying to preserve ordinary lives. The story of Turmus Ayya is one of many threads in a much larger tapestry, the daily struggle for land, identity, and dignity under occupation. It is a story of olive branches turned into shields, of harvest baskets turned into symbols of defiance. And as the world debates borders and peace accords, the farmers of this small village continue their quiet resistance, returning to the groves season after season under clouds of tear gas and uncertainty. Because for them, to harvest is to exist. The olive trees of Turmus Ayya stand tonight beneath a pale moon, their leaves trembling in the evening breeze. They bear witness to yet another day of struggle and to the unbroken will of those who refuse to let their roots be severed.